Before we begin today's story, I would like to apologize for my absence. I have been dealing with a lot medically and mentally. I have also been trying to land another part-time job. I hope you can forgive me, and I promise, as long as you all show interest in my stories and the narrations, I won't ever give up on this channel. I'm doing better medically and mentally. I'm on the proper medications and will slowly be getting back to regular uploads. Thank you to all the new subscribers, and most importantly, thank you for being patient with me. But without further ado, let's get to today's story. I never liked going to my Aunt Paola's house. Honestly, I never liked her either. She's a creepy, Bible-thumping Jesus fanatic, and she'd always circle over me like a vulture. But none of that creeped me out like her house did. It was old, run down, and filled with weird religious art. Sure, there were the typical paintings of the Last Supper and Our Lady of Guadalupe. That's not what made my skin crawl. It was the statues. I couldn't put my finger on exactly what bothered me, but something wasn't right about them. They were littered all over the place, filling every corner, turning up in every direction you looked, and I swear, they looked back. Giant, god-awful figures of saints and angels clogging the tiny house and turning it into a claustrophobic maze. I often wondered where my aunt had gotten the money for all the sculptures. In all other regards, it seemed as though she had taken a holy vow of poverty. Very little money was spent on herself, or even her toddler son. My cousin Miguel was just as strange as his mother. They were so alike that I sometimes forgot Aunt Paula had adopted him. It was the eyes that truly made them resemble one another, a haunted stare accompanied by uncomfortable silence. The first time I babysat Miguel, he never fussed or cried the way regular babies do. It should have been a relief, but the entire time I squirmed as he watched me. My mother insisted there was no medical reason to blame for his disposition. Secretly, I wondered if it came from being cooped up with my aunt who had never dated or married. After that evening, I passed all the babysitting opportunities on to my younger sister. She didn't seem to mind. It probably could have continued on that way if not for a school project that had my sister occupied at a neighbor's house right when my aunt insisted on going to Saturday Mass. There was nothing I could do to get out of it. My mom didn't care about my whining. She just leaned across the kitchen table and said, "Look, Marcos, I'm not asking, I'm telling." And that was the end of it. An hour later, we were in the car driving to my aunt's house. Gradually, clean swept sidewalks and picket fences gave way to chain link and graffiti. Occasionally, we'd pass a coffee shop, house packed with hipsters milling around like poverty tourists on a safari. People like my aunt were the wildlife. Just as the sun began to set, we arrived at the house. My mom parked, I stepped out of the car and walked up 4 wooden stairs to my aunt's front door. As I reached out to ring the doorbell, the front door flung open. "Hola, Marcos," she said in a thick Mexican accent. Her dark eyes stared into mine. She was a small lady with shoulder-length black hair. She wore a white polo shirt and a navy blue skirt that resembled a schoolgirl's uniform. Her wrinkled brown skin reminded me of a dried-up riverbed. "Miguel is already asleep in his crib. Make sure you give him his bottle if he starts crying. I made 2 of them already. They're in the refrigerator. And make sure you do not put the TV too loud. Your mom and I will be back in an hour." She pronounced the H in the word hour when she said it. "Okay, Tia Paola," I responded. She preferred when I called her Tia Paola because the word aunt was too American for her. She was an old-school Mexican lady that didn't believe in speaking English. She had no choice when it came to me because I didn't speak Spanish. That made her angry, and it made me chuckle every time that I reminded her of that. She stomped off towards the car as I waved my mom goodbye. I let out a sigh of disappointment as they drove off. Here we go, I thought aloud as I closed the door and walked into the pitch-black house. I felt the wall for the light switch and flicked it on. Directly in front of me stood a 5-foot-tall statue of the Blessed Virgin. I jumped back and yelped. Maybe it was my imagination, but I thought I saw hate in the eyes of the otherwise serene face of the statue. It was ridiculous. Statues can't feel hate or anything at all. It's just plaster, I said under my breath as I warily backed towards the sofa. As I rummaged around the floral pillows for the remote, I recalled that my aunt was too cheap to pay for cable. Maybe the bill would have eaten into her precious statue money. Still, that left 5 channels to choose from. 3 of those channels were network news, followed by Fox and some kind of Spanish public access. The pickings were slim. Luckily, Fox was showing episodes of The X-Files, and I had enough time to grab a snack while the commercials were on. Wandering towards the kitchen, I noticed crucifixes nailed above the doorway. Nope, nothing weird there, I muttered sarcastically. Inside the fridge, I found stacks of Tupperware, the 2 bottles for Miguel, and a cookie tin hiding towards the back. There was a 50% chance the tin held sewing supplies, especially since it was sitting on top of a Bible. Clearly, Aunt Paola was losing her mind. A spoon sat next to the Bible, so I used it to pry open the tin. Beans. Cold, smelly beans. My consolation prize was a bottle of water, which I grabbed just as I heard the show start in the living room. Hurrying back, I plopped down onto the couch. My phone buzzed with a new text message. Apparently my friends were off hanging out at the mall like normal teenagers, and the girls they were meeting had a friend who thought I was cute. Great. I was officially cursed. Instead of replying, I tossed my phone towards the other end of the couch so I could focus on the adventures of Mulder and Scully. The monster they were investigating was a shape-shifting something or other that was behind a string of murders in several local legends. Of course, Mulder had to ask, what if the legends are true? While Scully rolled her eyes and scribbled on the clipboard. Halfway through the episode, Scully was conducting an interview with a witness who just happened to be the monster in disguise. Tension was building, and just as it reached its peak, Miguel let out a blood-curdling scream down the hallway. I jumped up and ran down the hall to Miguel's room. His bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open to find pitch darkness. With my body halfway into his room, I blindly fumbled for the light switch. I flicked it on and found Miguel standing up in his crib. Tears rolled down his cheeks and onto his light blue onesie. His pudgy hands clasped the rails of the crib as he rocked his body back and forth. "What's wrong, Miguelito?" I asked as if expecting a 2-year-old to respond. Quickly, I remembered the bottles in the fridge and ran to grab one. I hustled back to his room and handed the bottle to him. He wouldn't take it and continued crying. I then pressed the nipple of the bottle to his lips, but he refused to drink. Desperate, I looked around his room as if I would find a solution to his crying laying around somewhere. I jumped back in fright. I don't know how I missed it when I walked into the room, but in front of Miguel's closet stood a life-size concrete gargoyle. It hunched over as if ready to pounce on its prey. Sharp feathered wings sprouted out from its back. Its menacing face was dominated by a nose that protruded like a parrot's beak over thick lips formed into a feral grin. The bald, misshapen head was dwarfed by its muscular body, from which oversized hands and arms hung below its bent knees, although the feet it perched on resembled a chicken's talons. The overall effect was ape-like. I'd never seen anything like it, yet it had an indefinable quality that matched the rest of the sculptures in the house. Maybe that was why I didn't run away screaming. While watching the hideous gargoyle, I rubbed my cousin's back to soothe him. Shh, don't cry, Miguelito. He coughed and made himself gag from crying so hard. Through his sobbing and crying, I heard my phone ring from the living room. I dropped the bottle in Miguel's crib, picked him up, and walked into the living room. Without looking at who was calling, I quickly answered the phone with my one free hand. "Hello?" I shouted over Miguel's cries. "Marcos, It's Tia Paola. Why is Miguel crying? I have no idea. I gave him his bottle and he wouldn't drink it. He won't stop crying. Mass ended early and we're on our way home. I told you not to put the TV so loud, Marcos, she shouted. Tia, maybe he's crying because of that ugly black statue you put in his room. That thing even scared me. Why would you have something like that in a baby's room? What black statue are you talking about, Marcos? I've never put anything like that in his room, she answered. Then where'd it come from? It was in front of his closet facing the crib, I shouted. She stayed silent for a moment, then whispered as if someone on my end of the line might overhear her. Listen to me carefully, Marcos. Get out of the house right now. Take Miguel and leave immediately. What? I asked. Her whispers turned into screams. Marcos, leave now. The statue you saw isn't a statue. Es un demonio. I slowly lowered my phone and attempted to translate her last words. Es un demonio, I whispered to myself. Prickles and goosebumps shot up my body once I realized what she had said. Oh shit. She said it's a demon. I dropped my phone and stumbled. The back of my knees hit the couch. I could hear my mom and aunt screaming my name from the phone speaker. As I stepped forward to move towards the front door, Miguel's bedroom light suddenly turned off. Miguel stopped crying and squeezed my neck with his little cold arms. With his face pressed against mine, we focused our eyes on the black hallway. His bedroom door gently creaked open. I could feel Miguel's heartbeat galloping along with mine. From the darkness of the bedroom hallway, a low-pitched growl echoed into the living room. Miguel began to scream again. As I ran to the front door, all the lights in the house suddenly shut off. Heavy footsteps thudded towards us. Something yanked both of my legs out from under me, and I fell onto my side. My head hit something hard, but through the dizziness and nausea, I held onto Miguel's torso with my good arm and struggled to my feet. We made maybe 2 or 3 more steps towards the door when Miguel was then ripped out of my grasp. The last thing I remember was somebody screaming. It might have been me. I'm not sure. When I came to my senses, I was on a stretcher being loaded into an ambulance. A paramedic said I had broken my arm and had a serious concussion. I don't recall rambling about monsters or trying to get up, but when I woke up in the hospital, I was told that I had to be restrained to keep from hurting myself. Doctors and detectives quizzed me on what I could remember. I insisted a monster disguised as a statue had attacked my cousin and I. They chalked it up to the blow to my head and told me that my cousin had been taken in the same home invasion that had resulted in my injuries. Someone with a clipboard gently explained to me that I had been watching a TV show about monsters and urban legends before I was attacked. The emotional and neurological trauma caused me to blend fantasy with memories of the crime. But what about the statues? I asked. Clearly I was still confused. My aunt never had any statues, not of gargoyles or anything else. A nurse came in to put a shot of something into my IV. The last thoughts that drifted through my head were that maybe some urban legends are true. Maybe a demon can look like a statue. And maybe that house was crawling with them. Thank you for listening to The Statues, written by Sammy Ruiz, narrated by CreepySauce. Again, thank you all for being patient with me. I am sorry for my absence due to the medical reasons. But I am back and will be taking things slow, but I do look forward to uploading again. If you like creepypastas and want to suggest more, leave them in the comments. I will read them and look into narrating them. If you enjoy the short story or creepypasta genre, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn the bell icon on. I need your help finding more stories. I need your opinions on what I can do to improve. But this is CreepySauce, and I'm on to the next pasta.